Well, welcome to the Profit by Design podcast. This live interview is going to be a very fun and exciting interview today. I'm bringing April Stroink on with me, and we are going to talk about how our non-conscious questions, the questions that we are maybe not even aware of that we carry around in our head, impact us. And April has an incredible story to share about how she used one of our most popular tools that we use at Tap the Potential, the choice map, to turn her worst year in business into her best year. So we will get into that shortly. Before we get started, I need to make a quick announcement. We are now enrolling for the How to Hire the Best course. So if you are ready to become that employer of choice to attract the A players that you want on your team, you definitely want to be a part of our How to Hire the Best course. You can go to tapthepotential.com/course and get signed up. Okay. So I want to introduce you, April, and share a little bit about how you and I connected. We were together at Profit First. April is a Profit First professional as well as I am. And we were together at a Profit First conference. We sat down randomly at lunch and started talking. And April shared all about how she had been using the choice map and her experience with it. Now, April was introduced to the choice map by Steve Bousquet of American Landscape and Lawn Science. Steve has been a longstanding client of Tap the Potential, and one of the tools that made the biggest impact on his life and his leadership is the choice map. So fast forward, that was several years ago. And fast forward, Steve has now gone on and he's a coach. He's out there coaching other business owners and sharing his knowledge and expertise. And one of the things that he really loves to share is the choice map and the power of changing our questions. It's made Steve a better listener, and he's the first to say it's made him a better human being overall. And April was actually a client of Steve's, and that's how she learned about the choice map. And so as I got into the conversation with April, it was really clear she and I both share a passion for bringing this tool to other people because it changes everything. And the book that it comes from is Change Your Questions, Change Your Life by Dr. Mary Lee Adams. And so before we go further in the conversation with April, I want to let you know who she is because she's a really cool person. She's a money coach and financial advisor who specializes in helping people create and enjoy financial well-being in their businesses and their personal lives. She's the creator of the Money Fix, a suite of programs to increase financial literacy for entrepreneurs. And I think we all need that. She's a fellow certified Profit First professional. In her previous life, April managed multiple investment teams throughout Atlantic Canada for a national finance company. She was also the owner and operator of a successful Halifax retail operation. Today, April is the money coach, a supportive guide who helps you understand and feel confident about your finances and future goals. She's known for her empathy and judgment-free coaching. I bet a lot of that has to do with the choice map as she combines her expertise with her own experience of running her family business. She also volunteers on several community boards and splits her time between Halifax and Solly Cove, Nova Scotia. So, April, welcome to the Profit by Design podcast.
Thank you, Sabrina. I'm so excited to be here. It's been a long time coming. I'm really happy it's happening.
Yes, I know. We've been trying to get this episode on the books for a while. So, you shared with me that the choice map helped you change your worst year in business to your best year. Tell us about that.
Well, and I've got to give credit where credit is due. And you mentioned Steve Bousquet, and yes, I mean, Steve is an amazing human being. And we were at ProfitCon in 2022, and I had put on the wishing wall. So this is something that we do at ProfitCon every year: is we put a wish up on the wishing wall, and then others grant it. And so I had put, I'm stuck, and I need help getting unstuck. And Steve granted my wish and started working with me. And one of the first tools that he introduced me to is the choice map. And I have mine laminated here. So, and I really, I'm a very coachable person. And so I really took it to heart and really changed some things in my business. I went all in with my niche. I went all in with coaching. I gave up my financial advisory side. And so we did all that work at the end of 2022. And then come Q1 of 2023, Sabrina, I built it, but I'm not Kevin Costner in the Field of Dreams. Like, people just didn't come. So I really started to sink deep into the judger pit and really start to equate my self-worth with my cash flow and my net worth, and really found myself really mired in the judger pit. And then working with Steve in the choice map, I really decided to change my questions. I'll have to say I got stuck in the switching lane a lot.
Mhm.
I wasn't always on the learner path right from the get-go, but really asking myself different questions really helped me really switch lanes and end up with my best year ever by just asking myself and my team different questions.
So I think this is such a powerful teaching moment when you're sharing from your own experience with how the choice map impacted you. Are you willing to share some of the judger questions you were asking yourself that were keeping you stuck?
Yes, my biggest was, what's wrong with me? Like, why is
Oh.
this not working? I've worked so hard. I've done all of the things. I took all of the courses. I worked with all of the people. I had everything in place. And again, why am I not experiencing this lift?
Mhm.
And so really it's got to be me. What's wrong with me? And I think, Sabrina, the biggest judger question I had was really equating that I was failing because my cash flow was failing, and really
Mm.
having to take that step back and really, you know, disassociate with my net worth is not my self-worth,
Yeah.
and really get myself on, like I said, I did not start over on the learning mindset every single time, but those switching questions really helped. And I think the biggest switching question for me is, do I really want to be feeling this right now? Like, is this helpful the way that I'm feeling? And absolutely wasn't. And I think that awareness, as you know, awareness is the first step to any change. But that awareness that I had now, and I had these tools that I could pull myself out of it much quicker than I could have previously.
Yeah. I just put in the chat here the comment, "My net worth is not my self-worth." That's such a powerful awareness. We entrepreneurs do that all the time. We equate the two, and you had to disconnect and say, no, my net worth is not my self worth. The other thing that I loved about what you shared is you were questioning your most destructive judger question was, what's wrong with me?
Hmm.
And the impact that that kind of question has on us. So, first off, I've had that question. I've asked myself that lots of times when things go wrong in my business. What's wrong with me? And what I think is so important to acknowledge about what you're saying is you were doing all the right things. So it must then we come to this conclusion like, oh, it must be me. What's wrong
Hmm.
with me that I
Hmm.
can't get this to work? So and when we have that kind of non-conscious question running through our head, it puts us in the judger pit. And so I wanna share a little bit about what the judger pit is, so we can all recognize it in ourselves because 'cause we've all been in it multiple times,
Daily.
and I'll start off, I'll share what my judger pit feels like, and then if you would share what yours feels like, so we can help others identify it for themselves. So for me, my judger pit feels like I wanna procrastinate, I wanna stop trying, I wanna go hide. I really want my energy gets low, and I feel like I still go through the motions. I still do the things that I know I'm supposed to be doing, but my heart is no longer in it. So
Mhm.
there just that disconnect with my being and my energy starts to happen. And I've felt myself when I notice it, I feel it feels like slipping into burnout because I'm putting more and more energy out there and I'm getting less and less return. And I find myself being critical of others. So when I start judging myself, then I start judging others and I
Mm.
start looking around like whose fault, who else is to blame for this? Is there something that I'm overlooking on the team? But it goes back to that question of what's wrong with me. But I start putting that energy out and I think my team members pick up on it. Like I'm looking for where's the problem here? So
Mhm.
how about for you? What is the what's wrong with me question trigger?
It triggers this spinning of wheels. I go into hyperactivity mode. I just go into grasping any branch that I can to help pull myself out. It goes to throwing the baby out with the bathwater and just, again, just trying everything and going into this place where multitasking, multi-focus, and for me, unfortunately, where it also sort of lands is with my family. So not so
Mhm.
much the team, but with the family. And if mama's not happy, no one else is happy, kind of
Yes.
scenario. And then just like I said, just throwing anything at the wall, just because I feel that if I stop, I judge myself of I'm lazy
Mhm.
and I can't be lazy. And so I go into hyper focus mode. So and then do everything not well. I was going to swear there, not well, because I'm just spinning my wheels and just trying to throw anything.
Yeah, yeah, and that energy, both of the different types of energy, we have you have a higher
Yeah,
energy and I get a lower
right.
energy, but
Exactly.
neither one is helpful
Right.
at all. So, what happened to your energy when you switched lanes and you went from judger to learner mindset, which is where we ask those more powerful, open-ended questions that create possibilities? How did your energy shift?
Calm.
Mm,
Place of calm and place of seeing the long term and really seeing the steps that I need to take to get there. And also to realize that these major shifts that I made in my business, they're not going to happen overnight. And it really made me focus on what was working well that I can incorporate back into my business while I'm trying to get traction on this new path in my
yeah,
business. And it really made me focus on what I have already, like the assets that I have, instead of hyper focusing on what are the assets that I need to accumulate and get, I really stopped and thought, what are the assets that I have? And how can I deploy those, but maybe deploy them differently? So, for example, I had said, I had gone all in on the money coaching side, had sort of abandoned the financial advisor side. And so, what I did instead was I knew that was working. I knew I wanted to do it differently. But instead of me doing all that work, I partnered up with somebody else to do the things that I'm not good at, which is admin, and focus on the sales side of things. So now, 100% of zero is zero, but 50% of something is 50%. And so it got the income coming back in, but allowed me the time to really focus on where I wanted to get my business forward. So switching to the learner path and seeing, taking that time, okay, stop with a hyper focused spin that's keeping you in judger pit and really look forward and what are the tools and what are the assets that I have. And Sabrina, I mean, not that people are assets, people are people, but I
yeah,
really start to look at those in my community, including yourself, including Steve, including others in my community that I could ask learner questions to that could
yes,
really help me get on this switching path and stay on this switching path in order for me to get to learner. So it really gave me that sense of calm to do an inventory on the arrows I had in my quiver or the assets that I already had, and to stop like trying to grab more, but
mm,
take inventory. I like the idea of you have a lemon and those are your assets and you got to squeeze all the juice out of them before you reach for another one, right? I don't know about you, but I have all these half lemons in my refrigerator that we just keep grabbing for more. And I just was like, I want to squeeze all of this out of the assets that I have and fully utilize what I have before I
Mhm.
keep just being in this judger pit of grabbing more and more and more that are just furthering my overwhelm.
So I want to highlight what you said about your relationships as assets because we entrepreneurs feel such a sense of isolation, and this May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So, I want to talk a little bit about the isolation that entrepreneurs experience, particularly when we start having problems in our business and we go into what's wrong with me. So, I talked about how I want to hide and withdraw. And that feeling of aloneness, like I am the
Mm.
only one who has these problems, is very isolating, and we forget we have these communities around us. So I love how you recognized I have some relationship assets that I have not squeezed fully, and I can rely on the people around me to help me find and for me, this is something that's tremendously beneficial to me is when someone else can shed a perspective on a situation that I can't see. And I think that's the biggest
Mhm.
benefit of our relationships when we open up to other entrepreneurs and say, I'm having this issue. Would you share with me some powerful questions that might help me see it in a different way? Or if you have an experience around this, would you share your experience? Not necessarily that I'm going to do what you did, because what you did may not fit me, but I want
Mhm.
to hear the experience because I will take something from it. And so you're sharing that by asking these learner questions, you opened yourself up to more support, and that was very beneficial to you in doing that. What were some of the learner questions? Do you remember some of the learner questions that you started as you were switching lanes and going down the learner path? What were some of the questions that got you going down the learner
The
path?
the biggest learner question for me that I have written out, and as I said, I've got my choice map on the wall. I brought it down today because I do love props, is, do I really want to be feeling like this right now?
Oh.
And what is possible if I look at this differently? And so, I just didn't want to be feeling like this way anymore. I didn't want to be grouchy to my family. I didn't want to feel this way. And so, if I don't want to feel this way, that's up to me, right? That is within my control. There are things we can't control. I can't control inflation. I can't control that interest rates went up. I can't control how my clients are feeling, but I can certainly control how I'm feeling. And I didn't want to feel this way anymore. I didn't want to waste any more time in this
Mhm.
judger pit. So, what did I need to do? And so, obviously, Sabrina, you know, I'm all about manifesting and meditation, but you also have to have it with action. And so, really saying, I don't want to feel this way anymore. So, if I'm going to bring myself on that switching lane, if not entirely, I don't feel that way, I'm going to move myself in that direction. And then I'm going to take the appropriate actions instead of the spin. So for me, that's always been the learner question of, do I want to be feeling this way right now? Do I want to be in this judger pit, this hyperactivity, for me, it shows in my throat. Um,
Mm.
and so I'm like, no, this isn't serving anybody. And it certainly isn't serving the people that mean the most to me. So I'm going to change how I'm feeling about this. And then, like I said, I can see the 30,000 foot when I'm feeling calm. And then
Mhm.
I can see the actions that are actually going to get me to the place that I want to be. But that's always a switching question for me.
Yeah. So, and as a psychologist, I want to throw in that when we change our thinking, we can change our emotional state that will follow, and our whole physical being will start to shift. So, having that intentionality that you had around shifting how you want to be feeling and being aware of the questions that you could ask yourself that would create that shift. I love the what's possible sort of questions, and you can fill in the blank with anything like what's possible if I, or what's possible when we, and it starts to open up the possibilities, obviously. And just in sharing, because I know it's going to be hard for people to see the choice map on the screen, especially if they're watching this on their phone. Just to give you a quick visual of the choice map, we have these non-conscious questions that we ask. So something happens, and then we have this immediate reaction with questions. And usually they're judger questions. We are kind of hardwired as human beings to notice what's wrong in our world. So we
Mhm.
focus, that's what catches our attention, are the things that are wrong. And so we start naturally asking these judger questions. And then we go down this path that takes us to the judger pit. And when we're in the judger pit, I like to think of us like the little Tasmanian devils. Like we're just spinning and spinning and creating more chaos and destruction all around us. And it's not a healthy place to be. And
Mhm.
so there's an opportunity at any point going down the judger path to switch lanes and get on the learner path. So we ask ourselves these switching questions that kind of open the possibility. And when we go down the learner path, we start thinking about what do I want? What do I need? What do the others involved in this situation? Like if it's an interaction between two people or a conflict, what does the other person need? What might they be thinking, feeling, and wanting?
Mhm.
And I love, especially in dealing with relationship issues, being able to get into that other person's perspective and realizing I'm making all kinds of assumptions about what they're thinking, feeling, and wanting, and why they're acting the way they're acting, which, by the way, also gets us in the judger pit. And once I start asking those learner questions about what are they actually feeling, thinking, wanting, I realize first off, I'm making assumptions. And we know what happens when we make assumptions.
Mhm.
That's not never a good thing. And then I start finding myself being curious, like really genuinely curious. And it's that genuine curiosity that allows us to have a different being, a different presence when we go back into the conversation with the other person. And so as we're on the learner path and we're asking those learner questions, it allows us to have conversations in a more balanced, neutral way that don't come across as threatening to others. When we are in the judger pit, we don't give off good energy, and
Mhm.
people respond to that. People around us get defensive. And at a minimal, they're going to pull away for safety, but more likely they're going to get defensive.
Mhm.
And then we're going to get defensive, and it just kind of feeds off. So going down the learner path creates a whole different energy. One of the things when I teach choice map in our leadership boot camp course, one of the things that I ask is when you're asking yourself learner questions, how does it feel? What do you feel in your body? And I have people describe what it feels like in the judger side, just like what we shared. And then I'll have people share what does it feel like on the learner side. And I hear a lot of comments similar to what you said. Like I felt this openness, I felt peace. I felt like I could entertain new ideas. And when we're in
Mhm.
judger, I think we're closed off. Like we can't even, our thinking is so narrow, we can't even see new possibilities and ideas. So learner path creates win-win-win solutions. April, I'm really curious. We're both profit first professionals. You are a money coach, so you have a lot of experience talking with others about money and helping
Mhm.
entrepreneurs with their money. Talk to me about how you see the choice map impacting how we do money as entrepreneurs.
Well, it is a perfect tool for entrepreneurs around their financial literacy because, you know, when I start to work with an entrepreneur, the first thing is, oh, I'm bad with my money. Well,
Mm,
that is a judger comment right from the get go. Or I should have, or I feel shame around. So many times, this is what I hear. And that puts us right in the judger pit when it comes to our finances. So it is the perfect tool for entrepreneurs around their money story. And so, you know, everybody wants transformation when it comes to their money, but people don't always want to change. And so
Mm.
what the choice map does is it helps you identify these stories that you either have inherited from usually your parents. Your parents are usually your first teachers when it comes to money. So you either mimic their money story or you do the polar opposite. And again, this is where you're telling yourself, I'm bad with money. People say I'm bad with money. I should know this. Oh my gosh, my bookkeeper should have done this. And I can't believe my accountant didn't do this. And now I'm in this place because of other people. So it is this judger pit that we go to when it comes to our money, because money doesn't equal math, Sabrina, as we know. It's emotional. And it's not until we name that we can get ahead with our financial goals. So what I do is I pull this out. It's part of my toolbox now, especially with my membership. I ask that question of, where are we at today? And it's interesting because people are like, oh, I'm in the judger pit and I'm judging myself for being in the judger pit, right?
Yes, that's a common
And
experience.
that's a common experience. And so, okay, well, awareness, like I said, is the first place to change. So let's use this to say, okay, what is possible with our money? Do we still want to be in this place? So let's start thinking of some of these learner questions. And quite often, we're not taught what to do with money because it's still very taboo to talk about our money. And so we become adults and we're just supposed to know what to do with it without the tools. And quite often those institutions that teach us around money may not have our best interest at heart, because quite often they profit from our ignorance. And so we need to take it upon ourselves to say, okay, I need to be on the learning path when it comes to financial literacy. And I say, stop shooting all over yourself when it comes to your money, and let's see what is possible. And let's put the beautiful thing is once we have the change in onto the learner mindset, then as profit first professionals, we have the tools and the systems to help you get there as well. But having the tools and systems, if you're not on the learner mindset, as you know, are not going to get you to those financial goals. So as a money coach, as someone who facilitates financial literacy for entrepreneurs, it is the perfect tool for the mindset side of money management, of getting you onto that learner path.
It dawned on me while you were sharing those judger questions that we ask around money. Those are all victim stance questions. And when we're in the judger pit, we are taking the victim role and giving power to others for
Mhm.
what's happening to us. And sometimes it's the they, like you said, it's my accountant's fault, my bookkeeper's fault. It's all these other people. And then the other thing that I see that happens is we end up pushing away the very professionals we have invited into our world to help us with our money, because we're in that place of judger
Mhm.
pit and victim stance. And when we shift and we take ownership and start thinking about, I find for myself, whenever there's a breakdown on the bookkeeping side or the accounting side, I want to talk about it and I want to understand, what could I have asked or what could I have done? How do we prevent this in the future? That's always where I go with it is, okay, this happened. This stinks. How do we prevent it in the future? Rather than let's get on a hunt and find the person whose fault it is. Well, maybe it's our fault. Or maybe it's just because, like you said, no one teaches us this stuff when we're kids, and then we become adults and magically somehow we're supposed to know what to do with
Right.
money. And for entrepreneurs, a lot of entrepreneurs come from impoverished backgrounds.
Mhm.
And I mean, talk about the money talk that goes on in that kind of background. And then all of a sudden you build a business and you have lots of money coming in. You may also have lots of expenses, but it looks like you should be rich. And so the self-talk that goes on when you're dealing with cash flow issues in a business is very self-destructive. So I imagine, from a profit first side, talk to me some about how you use learner questions with your clients as you're helping them implement profit first. What are some good learner questions for that?
Well, as you know, there's a lot of judger questions that come up when you say, okay, we're going to open multiple bank accounts. Well, why would I do that? Because, there's all these bank charges. So automatically you're in the judger pit. And then when you see again, well, it gets back to the question I asked myself is, do you still want to be feeling like this with your finances and your cash flow? Or do you want to have money set aside for your taxes? Do you want to have money in a profit account that you can use for yourself or however you wish? And so it's really about, okay, we have the system that supports your behaviors, and so we need you to be taking a look at this in a different perspective. And
Mhm.
it's really interesting, Sabrina. I was at a conference in Austin in September, and I was there with a fellow PFP. So Barb Stackhouse and I were together, and we were sitting with a CPA, and we were just discussing what each other does. And immediately that CPA says, I don't believe in profit first. It doesn't work. And so Barb and I are like, okay. Well, it does exist. So it's, it does
Mhm.
exist. And then we started to say it works with behaviors. It works with entrepreneurial behaviors. It's easier to reconcile 5 bank accounts than it is to reconcile one bank account that everything is coming out of. But it's these axioms that we're all taught around,
Mhm.
sales minus expenses equals profit. And we have to change that mindset. So, Sabrina, that goes back to like this being the perfect tool of, what assumptions am I making right now? Well, I'm
Yes.
making an assumption that more bank accounts is going to be more work for reconciling. I'm making assumptions that more bank accounts are going to be more expensive. And I think it was Ron Saharan who said, I don't care how much my bank accounts cost me because it works. And the $30 a month that I'm spending on a tax account is saving me penalties, interest, sleep at night factor. So,
Mhm.
it's like money. We're just taught these things that keep us down and keep us
Yeah.
in the judger pit. And we need to look at new ways of doing things. And it really comes down to, again, do you want to keep feeling this way at tax time? Do you want to keep feeling this way when you can't pay yourself? I mean, that was my story with our retail business. I'm like, everyone else is getting paid but me, and I'm working so hard. I don't want to do this anymore. And for me, Sabrina, and this is what I teach to entrepreneurs in my courses as well, is if you can't do it for yourself, anchor it to whoever you can do it for. So for me, I had to anchor it to I have 2 daughters, and I wanted to pay myself first and have a profit account because I have goals and dreams and aspirations for them. And so
Yes.
I could anchor it that way and keep myself on the learner path. And then from there, it eventually started to be more on the learner path when I was coming to paying myself first and making sure I was profitable. So if you need to have these little tricks of you going along of how to make this happen for you, but I just believe the profit first system puts us on the learner path every single time by working with our behaviors as entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. And I love Profit First for all the reasons that you shared. And then also for those of us who've been using Profit First for a while, it becomes a great warning system in our businesses.
Yeah.
Like we're going to catch red flags with our cash flow much sooner than someone who does not have Profit First in place. And that allows us to ask curious questions about what is impacting cash flow. And again, for me, I'll share a little bit about my negative money story. I have a father who was a banker, and one of the biggest messages I got as a child is debt is bad. Avoid debt at all costs. And so when I had to go into debt to keep the business going, especially during COVID, I was like, this is bad. This is bad. And I had to really switch my thinking and look at, if I take on some debt right now, what does it open up? What possibilities does
Mhm.
it open up? And once I started looking at it in that way, I realized, well, I've had a successful business now that's allowed me to work 25 hours a week and be a mom who's there for her kids, like what you said. How does it impact my family? And it'll allow me to keep this business going. So yes, I think I will take on some debt, and then I will use Profit First to pay it down. And so
Mhm.
Profit First allowed me to know, like, that confidence that if I have to do this during COVID as a survival tool, then I'm gonna have a plan to pay it down, and it's not going to be I think the other thing for me, the judge or pit, was once you open the door to debt, it's like a tsunami, and it's gonna come and just to overtake you, and I knew that wasn't going to be the case. Like, when I really stopped and was, talked my story out loud, and I realized, that's not true. You're not gonna just keep going into debt. So I put the plan in place to work it out and pay off the debt. So as a money coach, and you're working with people getting Profit First in place in their businesses, what are you seeing? I know by now you have some clients who've been doing this a longer period of time. What are you seeing that's going on in their businesses because they have Profit First in place?
I mean, I get emails all of the time from clients that I may have worked 4 years ago of, "I just wanted to let you know that." I think the most recent one that I'm just so celebrating their success is, a client that I've been working with for 3 years who was drowning in credit card debt, who had ostriched in regards to filing their taxes because they were worried about how much they owed. They had taken loans during COVID, and their spending was just out of control. And in this case, they were paying themselves $80,000 a year. And so we started working together and we put the system in place. And it really allowed them to know what to say yes to and what to say no to inside of their business. And
Mm,
in 3 years of working together, 2.5 years of working together, we were able to pay back the COVID loans, caught caught the business owner up on their taxes, because the first thing, we had to let sunlight in. I believe sunlight is the best disinfectant, and so knowing what the tax burden was instead of what it was in our brains, we could develop a plan, just like you're saying,
mhm,
using the Profit First system. And so it was interesting because especially the COVID loan wasn't as a high interest as the credit card loan, and I was, strategy of credit card loan first and then the COVID, but for her, it was paying that back was really important to her.
yeah, yeah,
So we worked with what was important. And
yes,
then Sabrina not only paid back COVID loan, paid back all back taxes, and was able to save, like, now we're back on track of, we're putting aside for this year's taxes. She
mhm.
gave herself a $60,000 raise. So from 80,000 to 140,000,
Wow.
all by using the Profit First system. And
Yes.
so these are the testimonials that I get all the time of, "Oh, April, I just wanted to let you know I had a doctor that I worked with during COVID that they weren't sure they were going to be able to keep the lights on. They thought they were going to have to sell the family cottage, which was really important to them. And she emailed me a couple months ago and said, just wanted to let you know that my mortgage was up for renewal. And instead of renewing my mortgage, I paid it off in full. Oh, and the family cottage, paid that off in full 2 years ago. Still
Yeah.
working the system, wanted to let you know. And, I don't know about you, Sabrina, but sometimes, like I said, like you said, you're on this island as an entrepreneur and you feel like, am I making impact in what I
Yeah.
do? And
Yeah.
then you receive those emails from clients that you worked with
Mhm.
years ago out of the blue. They're like, April, I'm still working the system and just wanted to let you know this is what it's done for me. And in that case, she's like, you will never know the impact
Mhm.
you've had on my family.
Yeah.
And that's why we do what we do, and that's what the Profit First system does for entrepreneurs. It's beyond the numbers, really.
Mhm.
It's the emotional side of things that really opens up for people as well, and it's about, again, the choice map of, I don't wanna feel like this anymore. I don't wanna be in the judge pit like this anymore. April, Sabrina, help me,
Yeah.
and give me the system in order for that to happen.
So, it's so profound, the stress that cash flow issues cause in a business, and being in debt. And when we can use Profit First with our clients to alleviate that stress, what opens up for them. And I'm like you, I love the hearing from past clients who've been implementing it for a while, And what I really want our listeners, those of you who are not doing Profit First yet, get on the bandwagon. But if you're in a place where you're struggling with cash flow and you're hearing these stories and you think, that sounds too pie in the sky, I can't even imagine. One of our clients several years ago worked with us. She came in and she was in such a bad debt situation. She was having to make these enormous payments on her debt every week.
Mm,
And talk about stress in the business. Like if she couldn't get the business in and get the cash for that, she was, I mean, that there was severe negative consequences. So she didn't want our entire solution. She wanted a Band-Aid. She's like,
mm,
I can't afford. And that's the other thing is I have my cash flow is so tight, I can't afford it. And we said, we don't do Band-Aids here because that's not going to serve you. You've got to do the full implementation. And she trusted us and we did the full implementation of Profit First. She paid down over $70,000 in debt in that first year. And that gave her such confidence. And she continued to use the system. And she reached out, it was last year or maybe 18 months ago, and said, I bought my first home. And, that it's those stories like that that give us why we do what we do. And I think it's so important that we keep sharing these stories to inspire other entrepreneurs who aren't using Profit First yet. Like, come on, this will help you, I promise. And yes, maybe your accountant is like that, the CPA that you and Barb ran into at the conference who's against Profit First, but there's lots of other Profit First accountants and bookkeepers who are more than happy to help you in using the system. So
well, I have to tell you as well, we did
yes,
by the end of breakfast turn her around that she was like, okay.
good. Very good. You got her to open her mind. I love
We
that.
did.
So, April, how can people get in touch with you and how can they learn if they would like to work with you? What's their next step?
Absolutely. So I am on all the socials. I'm here on LinkedIn and on Facebook, and as well over on Instagram. On my website, I do have a free profit assessment tool of your business. So you can go to aprilstroink.ca to download that free tool. But I think the best thing, Sabrina, is just to book a free consult for 30 minutes. And I believe strongly if you're going to spend any time with me, you're going to get something that you can implement in your business right away. So maybe you aren't ready right now to work together, but let's have a conversation. So you can book that free consult over on my website as well.
Okay, April, thank you. That is very generous. And we will link to that in our show notes as well as your social handles so people can find you.
Thank
As
you.
we wrap up, I want to do a little public service announcement since May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs are experiencing burnout. That's what our research is showing using the
Mm,
Better Business, Better Life assessment. So I want to encourage entrepreneurs, if you are struggling, if you feel like you're alone in your business, if you find you're getting more cynical, you are feeling like you don't want to do this anymore, or you're wondering if I can even have the energy to keep it up, take our Better Business, Better Life assessment. You will receive your customized list of $10,000 an hour activities that you can take action on that will improve the health of your business and improve your quality of life. And when you take the assessment, we will also send you a signed copy of my book, The 4-Week Vacation. That's how dedicated we are to doing this research on the entrepreneurial experience and supporting entrepreneurs in having better mental health. So you can take that at tapthepotential.com/assessment. April, thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing your experience with the choice map. And again, I want to let everyone know, if you're curious about the choice map, the book is Change Your Questions, Change Your Life. It is a simple read. It's very enjoyable. It's written in a kind of first person story of someone else's experience as they went from the judger path to the learner path. And this is one of those books that you can do as a book club on your team and have the entire team read the book and talk about impact and changing mindsets. That will be a very
mhm.
profound experience. All right. Thanks everyone for being with us. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.